Welcome to the lesson 4 of Populations and Sustainability topic. Today's lesson is on conservation and preservation. The syllabus quotes, "You need to know the reasons for the differences between conservation and preservation." This is to include the economic, social, and ethical reasons for conservation of biological resources. The video that you're about to watch is to do with Yellowstone National Park, when a conservation technique was used to reintroduce wolves. This is to do with conservation, but it also is closely linked with your interdependence topic with the other teacher, where animals are linked to one another in food chains and food webs, and they ultimately rely on one another. Have a look and see how the dramatic change to Yellowstone National Park happened just from the reintroduction of wolves in this conservation technique. So what is conservation? Conservation is the maintenance of biodiversity through human actions or management. It includes maintaining biodiversity between species, within a species, and the maintenance of habitats. Conservation involves the management of ecosystems so that natural resources can be used without running out. This is sustainable development. And you can see that many products are sustainably grown in these habitats or sustainably used, such as sustainable timber production, where when one tree is cut down, another one is planted. Other conservation techniques can be restoring ecosystems that have been damaged or destroyed, such as controlled burning of forests to halt the succession and increase biodiversity, stop the woods turning into woods and turning them back to grassland and fields. Conservation is dynamic and needs to adapt to change. You have already learned about conservation techniques in the other biodiversity topic in Year 12, such as captive breeding programs, seed banks, and DNA banks. All these join in the conservation effort to preserve and maintain biodiversity. So what is preservation then? Preservation is the restriction or banning of human interference of any kind so an ecosystem remains in its original state. For example, newly discovered virgin caves are fragile ecosystems that can be damaged just by walking into them and can be preserved by banning all human interference, perhaps by using a barrier that prevents human entry but allows the entry of cave organisms such as bats. Preserved ecosystems include areas set aside in nature reserves and marine conservation zones where human interference is prohibited. So to put it straight, this is all national parks, marine parks. They are all preserved because they have no interference from human activity. An example of this is Bangavar National Park. This national park is in India, located in Madhya Pradesh, and is an area over 105 square kilometres. It was declared a national park in 1968 and then became a tiger reserve in 1993. The current core area is spread over 716 kilometres squared. This area is strictly prohibited for humans to enter, to live, and to work in. The area is completely preserved for wildlife. And due to this preservation, it has a large biodiversity. This therefore attracts huge numbers of visitors, as everyone wants to see a tiger in the wild. The park has strict opening hours. You can only visit from 6 in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning, and from 3 in the afternoon till 6 o'clock in the evening. This is to preserve the natural habitat and to keep human activity to a minimum. Additionally, humans cannot leave their vehicle and can only see animals and wildlife that cross the roads. Again, all this is so that ecosystem is kept in its original state, free from human interference. That's what preservation is. I just wanted to show you just how big the area is. This is 716 kilometers squared. You are looking for these animals. So it's a large area that is completely left natural. So therefore, it's very difficult to spot these animals such as tigers and bears, etc. And that's why it's such an important preservation technique, as these animals are completely free from any human activities or interference. This is also true for marine parks that again have been preserved to keep free of human activities such as fishing, such as any kind of interference on the reef. This is all limited, and what you find is you get an abundance of fish, an abundance of wildlife in these marine parks as well. These are preserved again. Again, this can be completely whole islands completely left for national parks. An example of this is the Komodo Islands in Indonesia, where the world's famous Komodo dragons live, the largest lizards in the world. This again is completely uninhabited by humans and is completely left to the lizards to roam. The only people that go on there are park rangers and tourists. So let's just get into the real reasons for conservation. It can be economic reasons, such as resources and income for countries. This can be drugs and medicines found from the habitats. It could be clothing, such as cotton and other things. It could be food from the rainforest, timber and paper from other forests. It could also be ethical. All organisms have a right to exist, and most play an important role in the ecosystem. We as humans have a moral responsibility to conserve the wide variety of existing natural ecosystems for future generations. Many people believe we do not have the right to decide which organisms can survive and which we can do without. There's also the social reasons, the aesthetic enjoyment of the beauty of ecosystems. People feel better, more relaxed, feel healthier and mentally better when they exercise, when they bird watch, when they walk, and when they cycle and climb in these natural habitats. Okay, so let's just have a look at a way conservation takes place. This is done through sustainable management. What is sustainable management then? Sustainability is a sustainable resource is one that is being economically exploited in such a way that it will not diminish or run out. So you usually get things such as toilet paper, which is sustainably resourced. That is where every tree that's cut down to make the toilet paper, 5 are planted in its place. So what are the aims of sustainability? It's basically to preserve the environment, to ensure the resources are available for future generations, to allow humans in all societies to live comfortably, to enable lower economically developed countries to develop through exploiting their natural resources, to create a more even balance in the consumption of these resources between the more economically developed countries and the least economically developed countries. So, what makes human activities more sustainable? Let's have a think about some of these things. One activity that humans are doing to make their areas more sustainable are providing provisions for the local flora and fauna. An example of this is wildlife corridors. This is linking wild areas together, so it allows organisms to move freely without being killed by traffic or without being disrupted by human activities. It allows them to move between national parks. This in turn increases species biodiversity by allowing different animals to mix their alleles and increase their species biodiversity. Other things can be to use soft engineering processes such as planting trees as flood defences instead of raising riverbanks. Obviously, you all know the River Trent. That is a mechanical, man-made structure, whereas naturally countries can install trees, and this will create a natural flood defence. Other things can be rotation of crops, allowing fallow periods where soil nutrients can recover and build up again. It also provides habitat for local wildlife. Other human activities that can be made more sustainable are using smaller scale farms rather than these massive intensive farms. Have lower inputs, so less fertiliser put on the fields, more organic manure, less intensive growing of crops, so less monoculture crop production, not only one crop, using multiple crops. Again, this will increase biodiversity in the area. So that's it for just this lesson. We'll be going further into sustainability, especially of trees, and how fishing is sustainably done in the next lesson. For now, could you please go to page 300 of the A Level textbook and answer questions 1 to 3. If you finish that, have a go at the extension questions on grey bats, also on page 300. I can provide the answers later. So that's it. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. That is lesson 4 complete.